Well, good morning, everybody. Merry after Christmas. Merry after Christmas. Christmas is done. There you go. Okay. So we left off last. We left off with Samuel being sent to check out this guy that God chose. Dude is insignificant. Dude is not regarded. I remember when I was first called, I was 16. 16 years old. I mean, I was called before then. I think I was 5. First time I ever experienced the calling. The calling doesn't make someone more better, doesn't make someone more special, doesn't make someone in tune. It doesn't. Doesn't put them at the head of the line. Doesn't give them special presence or, let me take this light down real quick. It doesn't give them, special access to anything really. It doesn't make them have a straight access phone number to God, this chair's really uncomfortable. I'm gonna buy a different one. Anyway, doesn't give them straight access to secrets. No. Doesn't make them an inner circle. And I know people always say that, it's inner circle because Jesus had James, Peter, and John. And, no. God doesn't function the way man does. But anyway, first time I experienced I just get that way in the morning. But anyway, first time I experienced the call was when I was 5. I was delivered big time, made free. I've never felt more free in my life than that day I was set free at 5 years old. It's kind of funny because I wasn't accepted into kindergarten. I knew too much. They said, he knows his colors, he knows his shapes, he knows how to read. You can't have him here. I did. I knew how to read at 5 years old. I used to read the calendar. I used to actually sit and write the calendar out. I remember my mom would have me read her the newspaper because I talked a lot. And I could talk. My little guy's like that. See that little guy, he's 12 already. Anyway, my Chevy Chase 16. Wow. Young lady. Gaga. Right in the middle. Well, Chevy Chase, Gaga, Joaquin in the middle. Jasmine and Charles even it out. Anyway, the calling. So once I was delivered, big story in that, I was delivered. And there was my aunt, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, her husband, my mom, and they're all praying. So then, after I was delivered, my aunt says, have him pray. And I prayed. And they were shocked. They were like, this guy's going to be a preacher someday. This guy's going to be an actual preacher someday. Anyway, it was funny because I remember I was a kid. And I would recite what I was told at home, at school, and I'd really get in depth with them and tell them this and tell them. I remember this one kid asked me, he said, "Hey, how come God doesn't like the angels that fell anymore?" And I looked at him, I think I was in second grade. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, do, do you like hot dogs?" He said, "I love hot dogs." I said, "Okay. You love hot dogs. I love hot dogs. Okay." Actually, he said chili dogs. I remember that. I said, "Awesome. Now, if you took that chili dog and you left it somewhere and it got rotten, would you go back and eat it?" He said, "No, I wouldn't." I said, "There you go." He goes, "Man, that's a good analogy." Here we are, second, third grade. The next time I was called was 16. I mean, where it really solidified my calling. 16 years old. Anyway, been fighting it ever since. Well, not this recent time. This most recent time, I wasn't fighting the calling. I was just not giving my full attention to the calling. It's funny because before I fought it, all the way I fought it. I mean, I fought it like you wouldn't believe. I don't want to do the calling. I don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't want to be. You know, that person, the one called. But I was called by God. Anyway, um, being called and actually doing the calling is way different. It's heavy. It's lonely sometimes. Sometimes it's cursed. Sometimes it's overwhelming because it's easier to define yourself with the frivolities, the insignificance. It's more easier that way. Man. Anyway, what's my head on my glasses or what? Anyway, so we were dealing yesterday with Saul not adhering to the word of God. And then we get David. And David's insignificant. David is a nobody. You remember me reading yesterday in Samuel when I got put on my granny glasses. Well, I don't want to say granny glasses, but where I see more clearer up close anyway. And just to go over a recap, we see where God sent Saul to kill the Amalekites. He didn't kill the Amalekites. And he didn't obey. And we see how God rejected him. Now, this is very significant because I remember when I was younger in the Lord, never read the Old Testament. Never did. Never read it. Just didn't. And used to just read the New Testament. And I remember it was around 1991. No, 89, 90. The last century. 10 years into the last century. And God told me, just like he told Samuel, go over here. How did he say it? He said, fill in her with oil and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehem, for I provided me a king among his sons. So just like that. He says to me, there's nobody serving me. Remember, 89.90. That's when TBN was just, that's when, churches are full and people are following God. You got services here and services there. It's Wednesday night Bible study, Thursday night prayer meeting, Friday night church service, Saturday night church service, Sunday morning church service, Sunday night church service, Monday men's gathering, Tuesday women's gathering, Wednesday prayer meeting, Friday church. So, yeah, now you barely get it on Sundays. But it was so prominent. And he tells me during that time, nobody is following me. I said, man, God, you gotta be kidding me. There's a television station. There's probably another television station. 24/7. There's buildings. There's church services going on. There's revivals. There's camp meetings. There's seminars. There's all this stuff. What do you mean nobody's serving? And then he showed me Saul's kingdom. When I read it, I finally read the Old Testament. I read it. I read it when I was a kid. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't read it. I just read the stories that were significant, like the creation, Israel leaving Egypt, the plagues, the Red Sea opening, and I'd stop there. And Psalms, that's what I read. So I can't say I didn't read the Old Testament at all. I just didn't read the Old Testament in its entirety. So when I started reading about David, I seen how, well, anyway. So when he showed me Saul, because when God rejected Saul, he still had his throne, he still had his crown, still had his scepter. People still listened to him. People still, Your Majesty and all that stuff. So it wasn't like it disappeared. But still, God was not with him. God had rejected him. So even though he had the crown, even though he had the scepter, even though he had the throne, even though the people still listened to him, even though he was accounted as king by the people, because God didn't acknowledge him, it was over. Going back to this, because the churches are full, because there's television stations, because there's services every week, because all that's going on, nobody was serving God themselves. And so we get to Mr. Insignificant. We get to Mr. Nobody. We get to Mr. Nothing at all. Let me start at verse 11 again. 16:11. Verse 7. Samuel said unto Jesse, Are here all thy children? And he said, There remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. Which, in that realm, wasn't anything popular. Wasn't anything extraordinary. He's the youngest of them all. He's out there in the dark. He's in the cold. He's watching these sheep. And sheep watching basically means taking in the feed, taking them to water, protecting them from the wolves, protecting them. Because they're easy pickings. Easy pickings. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. So important it is. And of course, why? He said, nobody. He's young, he's insignificant, he has no experience. And I know I keep emphasizing that. Okay. But it's true. Watch this. Every morning, I met my wife. We got together, we were reading the Bible together. And I told her, she goes, I don't know anything. I said, that's the best. When you don't know anything. Because she studied the Greek, she studied the Hebrew, she could write Greek and Hebrew from what I gather. And wow. She tried to find the meaning in the meaning and all this stuff. Which makes sense. Because other than that, you're just doing what I'm doing. That's just basically reading from the book. You're not bringing in glitz and glamour, fireworks, stuff like that. Plain. Okay. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy. Now I like the way it says that. And he sent and brought him in. Because he told him, he goes, we're not sitting down until you bring him. He went and brought him. Which tells you he had easy access to him. But he figured he was insignificant. He wasn't anybody. He wasn't anything, And he sent and brought him. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. So he's a good looking dude. Ruddy, kind of young, little guy. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him. But this is he. That's him. That's the one. 12-year-old kid. Yeah. Samuel took the horn of oil, anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Wow. That's what happened. The Spirit of the Lord stayed with him from then on. It says from that day forward. It was with him. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Wow. There's nothing worse than wallowing in your own mire. I'm always reminded of the prophets and the priests, like Eli. Their dad. Hophni and Phinehas, Eli's their dad. When Samuel was called, let me go there real quick. When Samuel was called, so Eli, the priest, tells Samuel, the prophet, and he says, what is this thing that the Lord hath said unto thee? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee, and more also, if thou hide anything from me of all the things that he said unto thee. Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And he said, so basically, um, he said, therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice nor offering forever, and that they will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house when I began, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. They used to do that. They would actually have sexual intercourse with the women right outside the door. And he didn't do anything about it. Now here's what Eli says. And Samuel told him every whit and hid nothing from him. And he said, it is the Lord. Let him do what seemeth him good. What are you going to do, right? And Saul's servant said unto him, behold, now an evil spirit from the Lord troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants which are before thee to play an harp, to seek out a man who is a cunning player on a harp. And it shall come to pass when the evil spirit from the God is upon thee, that he shall play with his hands, and thou shalt be well. Saul said unto his servants, provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is a cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Look at all they testify about David. David's a kid. We'll read that again. Then answered one of the servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite. Now, if you notice, they testify him in this manner. I think, well, let me look. I know when I read it. Let me read it to you. Here's what it says about Saul. And he had a son whose name was Saul. This is 1 Samuel 9:2. A choice young man and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. That's the limitedness of what they said. Goodly to look to. Appearance. That's why it says, when God said to Samuel, God doesn't see as man sees. So, and it didn't mean his head was long. So this guy said his head must have been long. No. It meant he looked like a leader. Looked good. He even talks about David looking good. But there's something else included in that. Then answered one of the servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, prudent in manners, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse and said, send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesse took an ass laden with bread and a bottle of wine and a cane, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. People try to use that on people to try to make them their slaves. And the person that's the armor bearer feels important because, oh, I'm rid of this person because of him. Get out of here with that junk. You know? And that's what churches have become. They become pyramid schemes. You got the guy who starts a church, and he sends people out to start their church under him. Whatever they make, they give to him. And they go out and do the same, and it all comes back to him. So, armor bearer, baloney. None of that is on today. Sorry. You put on the whole armor of God. Okay. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in thy sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit of God was upon Saul, that David took a harp, played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him when David would play. Now the Philistines gathered together the armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoko, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shoko and Azekah and Ephes Dammim. I always like those names. Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched in the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. So here's Israel, here's the Philistines, array. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And if you notice, here's the army, but nobody's going to fight. Tells you a lot right there. And there one other champion of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Now this guy even, I remember one of my relatives was reading a book about it, and they rewrote it and said there was no way this guy could have been, he couldn't breathe well, he was, and they give this big, and I'm like, shut up. There was no way this guy could be a champion if he was in that state. Right? It's crazy how people try to translate to make sense for themselves. What they were basically saying was, of course David killed him even though he's a little kid. This guy was all out of shape. Baloney. And there went a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, and he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass open upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. So then you get these idiots that sit there and say, well, they couldn't mean brass because brass wasn't created until, shut up. They weren't there. But it's funny because we'll take their word for it. How silly are we? Just because a man doesn't find it in the ground doesn't make it not so. Just because a man finds it on the ground doesn't make it so. And the staff was weaver's, and the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing the shield went before him. And it's so funny because this guy's a champion. This guy is ultimate. He should have been, heck with it, let's get these guys. But he's afraid because of the whispering. Yeah, them dang Israelites, I don't know what it is about them. There's something about them. I don't get it. They're down right now, but doggone it. When they're always down, they seem to just come back. They would whisper. All the nations. I remember when Israel first came out of Egypt, and the ladies would say, yeah, we heard about you, and our hearts are failing because of you. We hear how God did this for you, and God did that for you. All the men are afraid because of you. You bring a terror upon us. We heard about this. I think I read this in Job the other day to you folks about how God describes Satan. Canst thou draw Leviathan with a hook? Canst thou speak good soft words unto him? Will he make a covenant with you? Will he? Anybody who stirs him up is in danger. Well, how much more me? Hello. Hello. Anyway, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are you come out to meet, set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and you servants of Saul? Servants to Saul, choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall you be our servants and serve us. Just laid it out there. Well, this guy, champion, and he's, blah, blah, blah. Come on, folks. That's what's funny about it. Talking about it and doing something is two different things. Serious. And that's all you get today is this. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Wow. They were dismayed and greatly afraid. Soldiers, guys with experience, guys with armor, guys with swords, guys that when they were amongst each other, yeah, man, I did this and I did that. You should have seen this guy. And then all of a sudden, here comes the threat. Uh-oh. Silence. See? And that's the thing about it. Everybody's words are going to be tested. Where are you really at? I failed. Big time I failed. I spoke this and spoke that. When it came down to the fine wire, man, I failed like you wouldn't believe. But I'm not going to keep failing. You know what I mean? Yes, I want everything to work out. Yes, I want everything I had before. Yes, 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 all that stuff. I just had gotten that old car that I've always wanted. And it's funny because I remember when I was a kid, just to share this story with you. I was a kid and there was this old car. I was probably, God, how old was I? 18, 19, 20, 22 maybe. And there was this church I preached at. And there was this old car sitting right by the church. It was a blue one. It was Pontiac Chieftain. And I did. I was at church. And I was like, God, you said we could pray and ask. So I'm asking you, Lord, I'd like to have a car like this someday. Pontiac Chieftain. I ended up getting it. It's not here now, but still, that moment in time that I got to drive it and I got to sit in it, and I heard it rev, and I did the tree on the tree, and just looked at the beauty of it. He did it years and years later. Gee, how long was that? Like 27, 28 years? Anyway. Now, David was the son of Ephraim of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went out and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of the 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, firstborn, next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shema. Shama. Shama. Shamma. Okay, there we go. These are his older brothers. They're with Saul, but they're not fighting. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Now notice. Wow. David gets to be called to the king, bypassing his brothers. He's with the king. He plays the harp. The king settled. The king tells Jesse, let your son stay with me. He's my armor bearer now. What does David do? Goes right back where he started from. He left the kingdom. He left the king. He left the most important that he thought. Not him himself, but everybody thinks. And he went back to the sheep. It's going to be here. These sheep are so important. Now the Philistines drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. That must have been what that no good guy Rick Warren is writing about. This guy, because he wasn't writing about the things of God, I'll tell you that right now. He did that book to get money. 40 days of purpose. Come on, man. Anyway. Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. So now they're fighting finally. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper. So David basically found someone just as good as him and said, watch these, because he wouldn't trust us anyway. I know this. And went as Jesse commanded him, and he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel said unto the Philistines, for Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And he talked with them, and as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. His brothers are there. Everybody's there, and nobody's doing nothing. David hears it, and what does he do? And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. Good thing David wasn't a man yet. Come on. And the men said, have you seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the approach from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? Now notice, we read there where David got anointed. We read there where David was in fact anointed, where the Spirit of God was upon David from that day forward. David hears this guy, and he counters it. But the people answered him to the manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him. Now let's see what was going to be done. Enrich him with great riches, give him his daughter, make his father's house free. So already David has a way into the kingdom without having a way into the kingdom. Saul is the one stating this, the king. And everybody heard it. Yeah, if you kill this guy, man, you get his daughter, which if he marries the princess, he's already in line to the throne. And that's the thing about it, folks. The troubles we face, the situations, the adversities, the hardships, the long suffering, putting us somewhere. Watch. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And see, I'm going to tell you what his brother was really doing. See, his brother was a coward. I'm going to say it straight up. And we read where even Jesus' own brothers said, hey, no man can do the things you do and not be known. If you are really who you are, show yourself to the world. Then it says this, for neither did his brethren believe in him. And so, this man being a coward doesn't want anyone to see his fear, his cowardness, and all that. So, of course, he attacks David. Just reflecting what he's feeling inside. And David said, "What have I now done? Is there not a cause?" And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And the words were heard which David spake. They rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. Now keep in mind, Saul already knew who he was because of the harp playing. Saul already knew who he was, supposedly. And of course, because everybody else is doing the same thing, David stands out because he's doing something different. When in fact, everybody that had armor on, everybody that had sword in their hand, everybody that was called a soldier should have been the one that said, "Let me go fight this guy." Because that's their job. Reminds me of those police down in Texas when they wouldn't go in that room. Hello? It's their job. And when the words were heard, which spake David, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said unto Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." You know, I always thought, because we look at it that way. We look at the scenario as, but see, this is the thing, folks. David already knew what was going to happen before he even got there. I'm going to say it like that. David already knew it. David functioning in the experience that he had with God. Now, he didn't have the experience that the world defines as experience. He didn't have the things of the world that validate or make sure that someone is, in fact, what they are. All he had is what he experienced with God. And Saul said to David, "Thou art not able." See, there's the world. We're all old dudes here. We're all experienced people here. We're all somebody. Come on, folks. See, I don't want to share this with you. It's going to sound mean, but I got to do it. Sometimes your years of service gets in your way. I hear a lot of people pride that, you know, I've been saved since 19, or I got saved 3 years ago, or I gave my heart to the Lord 15 years ago. It gets in their way. You got all these guys, soldiers, who have experience, who have battled, who have put their time in and moved up the scale, who ended up finally getting armor, and you know, now I'm a soldier because I have my armor. And there's the contradiction. Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth. There it is. You're nothing but a youth. You're too young. You don't know. You have no experience. You're basically nobody. And I like the way that Jeremiah says that. When he tells God, he not complains, but brings an argument, a good one to God, when he says, let me read it. Then said I, Ah, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. And this guy's bringing the argument. You're nothing but a kid. And he a man of war from his youth. But if you notice the testimony that's given about David in 16:18, he answers, then answered one of the servants and said, Behold, I have seen the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning and plain, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war. Right there. Already testified how David being a man of war. And David has never ever set foot on a battlefield yet. And this guy's testifying of David being a man of war. Dare I say it? Okay, I'll say it. See, that's the thing about people. They can spot stuff quick. What do I mean by that? Okay. Most people, because of their inexperience, can see something and actually tell themselves, boy, that stands out. They can't define it because they have no experience in it, but they know something. But here's what happens. People feel inadequate because they're doing nothing in their life, and they already know they're losers. Sorry. Serious. Why do you think people compete? Why do you think people try to get more? Why do you think people, even in stupid conversations, and then they'll bring out some stupid thing and it sounds so stupid. It does. Oh yeah, well shut up. Really. But even in the most minute things, they try to compete. Why? Again, going back to their feeling of inadequacy, feeling of less than. So anytime someone comes along and has that something, they want to quell it. David's brother. What are you doing out here? I know how you are. I know your pride. I know, Saul, you're a youth. He a man of war from his youth. But this gentleman who testified of David being a man of war, never seen David put on armor, never seen David in the battlefield, never seen David slay anything. Yet this is what he testifies about David. He is a man of war. Here, Saul just testifies that the giant is a man of war. Now, if anybody should have been on that battlefield facing that giant, it should have been Saul. Should have been Saul. No. It's funny because back in the days of war, you would have your most courageous men on the battlefield. Now they sit in a room somewhere giving orders. The kings used to be in the front battling. The kings. Now they sit, gotta hide. Crazy, right? I like the way Jesus said that. He said, tell you guys something. If anybody should be served, it should be me. If anybody should be sitting down and getting hooked up, it's me. But here I am serving you. Here I am washing your feet. Please don't take that. And people do that. Oh my God, I remember I stayed with this family one time. This was years ago, pre-marriage. So this family, they were cool. Don't get me wrong, they were cool. So they used this big bowl to wash their dishes. They never put it in the sink. They always washed in the bowl. And so they decided to do a foot washing. Would they use that bowl? And I thought, I'm never eating a plate out of your house ever again. I'm going to buy my own paper plates because that to me is just gross. I'm sorry. Well, we can wash it. I don't care. That's just my mentality, folks. Toilet bowl. I don't care how many times you bleach it. Even if it's brand new, I'm not eating out of it. It's just the idea of it. I know. Anyway. So people do these things and pick up these things and try to follow these things to cover. And this gentleman testifies about David. He is a man of war. Okay? He is a man of war. Never having seen him go into the battlefield, never having seen him step a foot into the battlefield, he is a man of war. Now, watch this. And David said unto Saul, now, so David's going to reference an experience. David's going to reference something that went on. Because I can do that. And like I said, yesterday, I'll say it by God's grace. Yesterday, when I was feeling low and feeling insignificant, just feeling the weight of the world, I guess you'd say, I could reference some things that I had gone through before, and God delivered me from them. Yeah, I could. I could sit there and think, okay, you did this, and then you did this, and then you did this too, and then you did that. Wow. So when God did what he did with getting me out of that snowdrift, so insignificant, but yet to me I was like, wow, he's doing it. Because these guys didn't have to stop. They didn't have to hook up that. And I didn't even get out of the truck. They did it all. Pull, got me out. And then these people are going to buy the food anyway. Anyway, pretty cool. Pretty darn cool. Let me get back on this. Let me give you this experience here. Now, I'm going to give you something. I've never seen this before. I read this story again and again and again and again. And I've never seen this before. Okay. Now I see it. It floors me. David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. Whoa. There came a lion and a bear. Not just any, ordinary. I don't know if I've seen this movie, The Revenant. I think it's called The Revenant, where this guy was attacked by a bear. Big claws. They're long, man. Ooh, they're long. Ripped him up. And most people today would say, well, we've got 50 sheep. He took one. They're gonna mate next year. Mating season's coming around. We'll let them have a little extra fun, and we'll try to make up for that one that got lost. That's the excuses today. How does Jesus say it? Here's how he says it. Verily I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door to the ship will come of some other way. The same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And the stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake he unto them, but they understood not what things which they were which he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, verily I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not for to steal and to kill and destroy, but I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is a hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not. There you go. What is a hireling? Someone that's hired. Most of these dudes that you sit under, most of these chicks that you sit under, most of these people that you go to their building, they're hired. They can give a damn about you. They care more about their payment. Yeah. So David goes, and I went after him, smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he had defied the armies of the living God. So, here we go. I'm putting my life on the line because this dude's huge. But see, as he goes along, as he is in fact in this instance of training, my God, he's out there, and he says there, David said, moreover, watch, let's get down to the root of it. The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he shall deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Hello. The Lord that delivered me. Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. That's heavy. I'm going to stop there. It's already been an hour almost, and I know people get bored. But I'll finish this up. Okay. Got a lot more to talk about. Anyway, God bless. Have a good day. Might have to do some deliveries, but we'll talk to you. Bye.